This is what we want teachers to know about what it's like for a child living in care to attend mainstream education. Sometimes we don't feel supported. This film will help you have a better understanding of our issues. Let's hear from the experts.
When I was in school, I faced a lot of issues. One of the main ones was stress. I was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety. Therefore, in class, when I become more stressed, because of my PTSD, I used to dissociate. When I dissociated, my teachers thought that I wasn't paying attention on purpose. They thought that I didn't care about the work I was doing, when really it wasn't something I could control.
So when I was at school, I did have aims and goals and dreams and ambitions and stuff, but there was that much chaos going on, I really couldn't concentrate on them, so it was just about getting through each day and getting to the end of the day and getting to the next one.
My relationship with my mum broke down, and then I went to live with my dad and my sister, and the relationship with my dad broke down. So me and my sister was put in foster care, and then my placement at that foster placement broke down. So I was separated from my sister, and in my eyes, all the grief I had and why I was rebelling at school, no teachers understood me. This is why I was getting excluded, ended up in a pupil referral unit.
De-escalate a child who is in such a triggered state. And I think sometimes this can happen in classrooms, in corridors, in lunch, in the canteen, during a lesson, different topics. You don't necessarily know what the trigger is going to be for that child.
Children will often already feel different, and then sometimes if the school can't manage them, their care staff will get called in to support them. And that's not normal, that's not what happens, so then they feel even worse.
Any child that's looked after has got more than likely higher needs than most children because of trauma. And insecure attachment.
We've realised that trauma impacts every part of a child's education, from walking in the door to sitting down and doing work. Sometimes they're not ready to do any of that.
Losing them people in my life felt like I was worthless, felt like I was nothing. I'd go to school, all the other children had their mums and dads to come and pick them up. I didn't. I felt like I felt like I'd done something wrong. Why am I in this position? Why am I the one in foster care, not nobody else? So me losing them 3 people, it took a strain on my mental health, I felt like I was worthless, like I didn't want to be here no more. Nobody cared, especially education.
I've got 2 siblings who are at home with me. I've got a brother who's 14 months younger than me and a sister who's 6 years younger than me, but my brother went into prison when he was 14 and I was separated from my sister, and I wasn't really allowed contact with her until I was about 19, so yeah, I didn't see my sister properly for about 7 years.
You could lose everything, have everything in one moment and lose it in a second, and the trauma will hit them in waves.
Sometimes family time was arranged midweek when I had school. It would upset me leading up to it, and the teachers wouldn't understand why I was upset, and it would upset me afterwards and probably the day after, having to say goodbye.
I was seen as a naughty kid rather than a kid who had problems, who was troubled, who needed people to look a bit deeper. In my file from social services it says I was feral.
Sometimes, because of the lack of sleep, I'd fall asleep in lessons. That had caused issues because my teachers thought I was being lazy. It wasn't. I was exhausted and I needed rest.
I was expelled from school, and I ended up in a pupil referral unit for naughty children. But I wouldn't class myself as naughty.
Having empathy with the student and their behaviour, letting them know they're safe to take time to reflect.
Obviously allow a lot more time, consideration and understanding for this child, because they will have more complex needs in recalling information, remembering information and concentration in general.
Punishing behaviour when behaviour is just communication. It's I've come into school today and I'm anxious and I'm scared and I don't know what I'm going home to. Banalising it is not productive, it's not constructive. You need to listen, give them time, give them space, and recognise their behaviour, that they're trying to tell you something.
I'm Romany Gypsy and well, I'm a Didikoi, so it means I'm a half-breed. So I'm half Irish traveller, half Romany Gypsy. So there weren't no other gypsies at my school, I was the only gypsy. And also I'm a lesbian, so I was struggling with my sexuality and coming to terms with my sexual identity and things like that too, so pretty tough time really.
When I was in school, I made up a story that I live with my auntie and my uncle. I was scared that teachers would get into conversations with me publicly in class about my family. I was scared that I would slip up and say that they weren't actually my auntie and my uncle, that they were my foster carers.
Not only was I hiding the fact that I was in foster care, I was also coming to terms of the fact that I am gay. And so that was also another thing to hide.
Culturally they're very different, and coming into an English community can be very, very overwhelming, especially if their culture is significantly different to the people that they're surrounded by.
With the pressures that society puts on you, looking at your sexuality, your gender, the expectations that society has of you, and being a child looked after can be really challenging. We need to be curious about their lives, we need to listen to them, we need to have an understanding.
So it's not like a typical family home. There's always some activities to go to or some celebration and people talking, people coming in and out. So we lack a lot of quiet space for children to be able to do that with too.
We will differentiate work in class for young people to meet their needs, their abilities. However, how often do we look at differentiating their homework for the needs of their home life?
When I needed to contact my social worker or psychologist during school time, we weren't allowed our phones and I couldn't access my email through the school computers. And by the time I would get home, the offices would be shut, my social worker and psychologist had finished their shift and I couldn't get in contact with them.
Whilst in education I did get some sort of support. I got a time-out pass. So whenever I felt anxious or stressed in class, I could have gone out with my pass. The reason they took the card off me is because they've seen it as I was using it too many times. They didn't ask what's going on. They could have asked, can we refer him to CAMHS? Can we get any more support? But they didn't. They just took the pass off me, back into class, back into mainstream school.
In the past, I used to self-harm. This was caused issues in school because of PE. There was a specific kit that you had to wear and I refused to wear it because I wanted to cover up my arms and legs because I would feel embarrassed.
From experience, we've found that communicating within safeguarding protocols, of course, but communicating strongly with everybody who works with that young person, so they are aware of what's gone on in their lives, what's happening now, what's going to be happening at the weekend, is really, really important.
When PEPs and LACs were arranged during school time, it would make me feel different when I had to get pulled out of class. Many people would ask a lot of questions about where I was going and it was too embarrassing to tell them the truth.
My advice, if you're looking at taking a child into a mainstream setting that is looked after, will be to really think about whether you can meet that child's needs or not. Because if you say you can and they come into that setting and then you can't, they're only going to feel shame and rejection when they're told actually he is not the right place for you.
The key thing that we have to remember, which will be a major emotion for any of these children in the classroom setting, is shame. They're going to get triggered and feel very shameful and very different from all the other children based on what they've experienced.
Creating consistency, especially in staffing, in friendship groups, just creating that safe space for the young person so they know that they are listened to, that the staff are empathetic, that they get it.
To have a better understanding and ask what's going on, have more empathy towards children who are having a hard time, and to make sure that the information is passed around correctly to every teacher that needs to know.
all of the kids that weren't in care, it seemed like people were speaking to them about going to university, wanting to be engineers, wanting to be teachers, doctors, lawyers. For us it was about, there's jobs in factories, there's jobs in supermarkets, you can work in a nursery or you could be a hairdresser. And there weren't really much ambition for us, and no one really told us what you could achieve if you put your mind to it.
When I left high school, I went to college, graduated college, level 2 public services. Walked out of college, went straight into a full-time job.
Creating aspirations for these young people that are realistic and achievable. They may not be in a social and emotional state until they're in their 30s to go to university, which is a common aspiration for young people. However, if they want to work on the farm, celebrate that, encourage that, celebrate their individuality and their special talents.
I kind of built my confidence up for education, and I went to university when I was 26, graduated at 29 with a first class honours degree from Birmingham University and the Julia Smith Prize for my achievements.
What's good, people? My name is Rick Flo. I'm a care experienced rapper who graduated from uni at the age of 22. Say that my art teacher was in secondary school was a big help for my self-esteem and confidence. That encouragement and just her letting us play rap music or whatever we were interested in lesson really showed that, look, she's attentive to our needs. It's not just a dictatorship, like she actually wants us to do well. So I would say that's been a big help in regards to how I see teaching, how I see art and helping others.
I may have struggled at school, but I still did alright. I'm off to university aged 18 to study health and social care, and I can't wait. Please remember that teachers can be the one consistent person for care experienced kids. Remember, you can be the one who makes the difference.
To find out more information about our Student Insight, contact us on participation@5-rivers.org.